Welcome everyone, L2R2 Playstation Podcast. My name's Fonze. I'm joined by my co-host, indie game dev, and my UK bro from another mum, Callum Monroe. Callum, how are you doing?
Yeah, doing good. Like I said to you earlier, it's felt like it's been a long week, a long stressful week, which we'll get into later. But yeah, no, good.
Nice. So what have you been playing, doing anything over the week? Any exciting news, any life stuff? Jesus.
Not really, other than it being sort of swelteringly hot over here. Yeah, obviously I played The Last of Us, which we'll get into later. But
Yeah.
other than that, been playing a bit more Persona 5. I think I finally finished the base story of it. So I'm now on the additional content. And it had the most JRPG centric boss I've ever seen, where you basically fight God, which is the
Really?
same for every single JRPG. So that was quite funny. But no, it's really cool. It's just really spiced up. So I think I'm pretty much bang on 100 hours in now, which is just it's weird to even say that. But yeah, so bumbling along with that, and I've been playing more Mass Effect 2 as well, which I've been really enjoying. So yeah, keeping sort of the amount of games I'm playing down a little bit more this week. But yeah.
That sounds like a lot already, but with Mass Effect 2, are you working on finishing that and also doing a deep dive into that one as well?
Yeah, so I'll be doing a review on it, same as I did for the first one. I'm really looking forward to it. I feel a bit more prepared this time round, because I've sort of been making sure I'm recording footage that will sort of work with what I'm going to talk about, and making notes as I go and everything as well. But yeah, so yeah, I'm going to definitely do a sort of another sort of deep dive review on it, and it'll be a lot more positive from what I've seen so far compared to my first one.
Right. No, yeah, we've talked, a bunch about how they've really made the right changes, and they've learned from the stuff and made everything more efficient and just overall fun. And yeah, they're I'm hopeful that they go back on track with the newer stuff, because the newer Mass Effect took that dive off the deep end, and you have Anthem, in turmoil. So it's just so crazy, because you're playing it in that, if you're in a time capsule, you're in that era where they were on top of the world. So we live in the reality now where it's they're at the bottom and they're trying to come back up.
Yeah. I think like you said, it is quite strange for me playing this for the first time now, and I've got a friend who's really into them, who I've been talking to sort of as I play, and he's sort of enjoying hearing me talk about it for the first time. But that's also why I sort of wanted to do these videos on them, because I thought, from somebody who's not only never played them before, so I can give a fresh, nostalgia-free perspective on them, but also I really didn't like the first game. That's why I never touched the series. So it's kind of I'm sort of eating my own words a little bit as I play it as well, which is quite cool, because I'm really loving the second game. So it's really making me realize what I missed out on as well.
Gotcha. That's awesome. I don't have much to add on to the whole thing this week. Really just been going really deep into The Last of Us. Almost barely, missed the mark as far as having enough time to beat it. I'm surprised how long the game is. But I was playing in the beginning of the week, kind of flip-flopping the tone with how dark The Last of Us is. I was playing this super light game called Wave Break, and it's it's a game on Stadia, and it's this Tony Hawk's Pro Skater kind of game where you're skating around on jet skis, but you're these cute, adorable stuffed animals, and there's shooting mechanics, and it's in the 80s, kind of like Vice City meets something I don't know, My Life is Pedro with Tony Hawk's Pro Skater gameplay. It's pretty dope. It has a lot of issues with that I had with just it's on Stadia, so I don't know if some of that was from just streaming it, but the controls weren't as quick to respond as I wanted to be, especially with a game like that, where you need the responses to be so quick. I need to feel like I can snap on to the geometry in a way that makes sense to me, that I'm used to with Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, that kind of thing. And I didn't have that, so some of the fun was kind of taken out of it. But it was fun to balance that between what I was playing with The Last of Us. Sometimes I needed kind of a palate cleanser, and that was there to do that. But
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I've seen the episode of Plastic Hearts you did with the devs behind it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it looks really cool. It looks really fun. The water effects look like super nice in it. So yeah, you'd have to hope it's to do with Stadia that you've had sort of, because you can definitely tell with like the kind of issues you have that whether they're game related or whether they're to do with streaming. So I tried. I downloaded PlayStation Now on my PC because we've recently updated our internet, so it should reach sort of out here to me a bit better. And I was trying Dishonored on PlayStation Now, the PS3 version of it. And yeah, it was just, I wasn't even getting like a bad connection sort of notification that it normally gives you. It was just like the audio would sort of like hiccup every now and then. Like it would feel like, you know, when games have that like weird drag on like the camera, when like the acceleration,
Right. Yep.
it felt like it's always had that applied to it. So it was just really like not enjoyable. So yeah, I think we've talked about it quite a lot before about sort of streaming and how it's probably not quite 100% yet. But no, that's cool. It's cool that it's finally released, and it's nice to see that they sort of have got it out there. And yeah, it looks awesome from what I've seen.
Yeah, and it's a cool idea. They're a really good dev, and so I'm just more interested in seeing them put the game out in its proper channels, I guess, you know, like on console, on PC, just to make sure like, okay, it wasn't maybe it wasn't stated, it was just like how the game runs. But I think you kind of have to factor that in. And the downside is it's premiered on Stadia first, so there's no other thing to like to grade it against. It's just on Stadia for the first time.
Yeah. So is it coming? Was it coming to PC? Is it coming to like other consoles as well?
They haven't said yet. It's all the promotion is just like first on Stadia, but I would have to imagine that's just like an exclusive deal, and then eventually we'll see it on, because all their other games have released on other platforms, and they primarily did, or they focused on VR. So this is like one of their first times in this different genre.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
But yeah, played that, and a little bit of Fortnite with the kiddos, with the nephews, just so I can stay in the loop and know what the hot new slang and what the kids are talking about now.
Yeah, stay hip.
Yep. Do my Fortnite dances.
It's funny to say about the palate cleanser, because I definitely feel like I needed that from Last of Us 2 as well. I've been watching The Expanse on Amazon.
Oh, I've heard that's a good show.
Yeah, it's really good. It seems a bit like, it's a little bit cringy every now and then. I feel like the acting's a bit. It premiered on Sci-Fi, I found out, which sort of explains the sort of like weirdness about it sometimes. But yeah, it's so interesting. It's and like all the space stuff is like done really well. So yeah, so that I've been sort of using that as my palate cleanser whenever I'm sort of depressed from what The Last of Us's story sort of did to me. But
yeah, I've also been after each like session, pretty much I would go and skate around a little bit on my skateboard, and I've been doing that more as just a way to then I'll like also process my thoughts while I'm skating, and I've been doing that as kind of like a balance to just the gameplay, and like, and also just sitting down all day. It's also a way to just get out and exercise. But I ate it pretty hard. I think it was last week, and my elbow and knees just like hurt, and it's made me weary of going back out there again. But I just don't recover as fast.
It's the worst thing when you're like got a little injury or something, because then you can't go and like carry on and sort of get like stronger. So you have to then like wait, and then you're just gonna ache again, because it's like still gonna be hard. Like I've been like neglecting training so much over lockdown. I did some training because we've like set up the garage now we've got like a punch bag and like a treadmill and stuff, so I can sort of got like a bit of room to do some things. And yeah, I did like an hour out there, and I couldn't walk properly for like 3 days. I just had like the worst like aches and like the inside of my thighs, and it was awful. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting when everything goes back to normal, to see sort of how we fit back into like normal life, I suppose.
Yeah, I know some in the States, some gyms are opening in various states, and they have like these weird like cubicle things they set up where it's almost like little bubbles for each like weightlifting machine, that kind of thing. So they're trying stuff out. It seems weird. I think I'd rather just like go for a jog or something than. It just seems like a strange setup, but people are trying to figure it out. It's just, I don't know. I know with because you're doing like kickboxing for a while, right? I know you've done that for quite a while, actually. Is there any way that you could really train with someone? I mean, besides like both you getting tested, and that's the only thing?
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's a couple of gyms that I follow on sort of Facebook that I've been to sort of before, and the gym I train at hasn't opened or anything, but he's doing like live videos for the students to sort of do along,
Gotcha.
which is quite a nice alternative. But yeah, there's one gym that I know of that's opened, and he says that he's following like COVID regulations or whatever. But I'm not sure really how that works. I think it's down to sort of keeping space between other members,
Right.
not sharing equipment, so having your own gloves and everything. But yeah, I mean, you're still going to be like quite close to the instructor, so I think there is an element of trust there as well. I mean, because I'm with my parents at the moment, I wouldn't feel comfortable going out. Simply because I wouldn't want to, just in case, catch something and bring it home. I mean, if
Yep.
I was still sort of living on my own, I'd have breached everything by now, probably, if I'm honest. But you've sort of just got to like assess your own situation, really. And I think it's probably too early for gyms to open quite yet. But in the UK, because we have some absolutely mental government, we're opening pubs on July the 4th. But gyms aren't allowed to open and things like that. So you're allowed to go and have a drink and share, like, like touch a bar that loads of other people have touched, and touch a glass that someone else has just touched. But no, you're not allowed to go to a gym.
Yeah, there's
you're not allowed to look after your health. You're allowed to go and like drink yourself silly.
Right. There's a lot of counterintuitive kind of stuff that happens with this. It's like people are trying so hard to get back to normal, which I understand, but then it like sets everything back a step, or you'll have these two things that don't quite match up. Like you mentioned, you can't go to the gym and stay healthy, but you can go to a bar, which is just like, I guess people, we need that too. I get it, but
Yeah.
I know this. There's a similar thing I read in United States with Disneyland. They're trying to open up this summer. And one of the headlines, or somebody had like tweeted, it's like, oh, I can't hug my grandma, but we can both go on like Tower of Terror, and have a blast there. But so it's very strange how it like doesn't quite add up.
Yeah, I mean, you could probably like, it is difficult to deal with from like a government perspective, I suppose. But it is funny, like when you sort of like look at things in that light. And we where I am, like near a place called Bournemouth on the south of England, it's just been in the news recently because where we just had like the hottest days of the year, we had thousands and thousands of people coming down to Bournemouth and just flooding the beaches. People were parking like just all down residential areas, and they were literally like, I've never ever seen Bournemouth that busy, even when there's not a pandemic going on, and like just litter was left everywhere. Like the street, it literally looks like a Resident Evil movie. Like there's just litter everywhere all along the streets. The beaches are cut. It's just like, you just don't understand how certain people can sort of like think that way. But yeah, it's a mess, and hopefully it'll all be back to normal sooner than sort of we think.
Yeah, I'm hoping so too. It's a strange time, but yeah, we'll get through it, Callum.
Yeah, I'm sure we will.
Cut to 2 hours later, and it's all gone to shit. So, Cam, we'll get into some of the news stories, and then we'll go, super review, spoilery into The Last of Us 2, which I'd like that we haven't even really talked to each other about how we feel. We could have totally drastic opinions yet. Yeah. I think it's dope to just like go into it. But so for the before we get into that, we'll get into some of the news articles we have here over the week. This first one is about The Last of Us 2. This is The Last of Us 2. Last of Us Part 2 is the fastest selling PS4 exclusive ever. IGN's Adam Bankhurst has an article. The Last of Us Part 2 has officially sold through over 4 million copies as of June 21st, 2020, making it the fastest selling PS4 exclusive ever. Senior Vice President of PlayStation Worldwide Marketing at SIE, Eric Lampel, took to PlayStation blog to reveal the milestone, all but confirming that The Last of Us 2 has surpassed Marvel Spider-Man as Sony's fastest selling exclusive for the PlayStation 4 in its first 3 days. So, Callum, that's pretty nuts, especially since I thought this was a bit more surprising because this game, let's get into like this game focuses on Ellie. It doesn't have the box art, the dude on the cover. They're fighting that marketing battle, and there's a lot of issues with like what they decided to do in the game. People were review bombing it. So with all of that, it still sold incredibly well. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think without sort of talking about what I think or anything about the game itself, I think, Last of Us, the first Last of Us is like such a huge game, and so I think the sequel is always going to sell a lot. I think the people review bombing it, and even now like trashing it online and abusing the people who work on it and all this stupid stuff, who clearly haven't played the game. I mean, I've seen so many like completely false rumors about the game as well, which people believe are true. And I think they're just all vocal minority. You know, they're going to seem like they're the majority because they're the most vocal about it. But really, I mean, this speaks for that. It's selling hugely well. You can look at the negative reviews on Metacritic, and just by having a score of what, like 3.6 out of 10,
Yeah.
like, a score that low sort of does the opposite of put someone off, because unless like the critic score was at least somewhat low, like in the 60s or 70s, and then it got a 3, then it'd be a different story. But to be that much of a divide, you have to imagine there's some bandwagon hate going on, and sort of in the days that have followed, you can definitely see that is the case. And but yeah, I think in terms of it being fast selling PS4 exclusive, I think we could have expected that. I think it's great, and yeah, it's I'm surprised it was Spider-Man. That I mean, I'm sure I probably knew it in the back of my mind that Spider-Man was already the fastest selling exclusive, but I would have imagined it would have been like God of War or Uncharted 4 or something.
Right, same here. I guess with Spider-Man and God of War, they're just bigger properties, especially Spider-Man is such a huge property.
Yeah.
It transcends, you know, beyond games. So I guess, you know, at the end of the day, it makes more sense that it is Spider-Man.
Yeah.
But I don't have the data for God of War. I feel like that's got to be third place. Maybe after that, Horizon, or maybe Horizon before God of War. Not sure.
Yeah. Yeah, because the only reason I say God of War or Uncharted is because like they're the first games of this generation that are sequels. Well, God of War is kind of it is a sequel, but are sequels to games that were from the generation before, which is, you know, why I'd imagine they'd sell really well. So for Spider-Man to already outsell, you know, these sequels, it makes it even more impressive that Last of Us Part 2 has then surpassed that, because it not only means that it's more sought after than a God of War sequel or an Uncharted sequel, but it's more sought after than the thing that sort of beat those two things as well, if that makes sense. So yeah, it's really great. It's always good to beat records. So yeah, I think it's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, this is another reason why, with so many PS4s out there, you can't deny the fact that as we go into next gen, you know, it's harder to make these games exclusive for next gen just because you're leaving all this money on the table by not supporting PS4. I get that there's stuff they want to do hard drive wise or performance wise that you can only do on PS5, but I think we're going to see a lot more games try and go, you know, compatible on PS4 so they can sell as well, because I mean, that's where all the consoles are. But I mean, yeah, it's pretty amazing. I really dug that they were able to pull these numbers, because it was kind of a divisive, at least a divisive release between what people see online, whether they played it or not.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
Gotcha. So we'll get into this next thing, sort of related to The Last of Us. The Last of Us 2 is a big, long game. There's someone speeding away because they're so angry.
In fact, give me 2 seconds. I'm just going to shut this door.
Yeah, go for it.
It might drown out the pod racers.
Gotcha.
Yeah, sorry, we do have a bit of a pod racing problem around here. It's, yeah, sorry, carry on.
No problem. We got, so yeah, do you live on Tatooine? Where do they have the pod racing in in Star Wars? What was that planet?
Yeah, I think it was on Tatooine, yeah.
Or that's where Vader was. I don't think Vader was on the same planet as Luke, right? I mean, obviously not time-wise, but like, I don't know. I don't think Vader was from the same planet that they dumped or had Luke on.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I think it was actually. I think it was the same planet.
Okay.
I think it was. Yeah, I never really made that like specific connection really, but yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, because it's Tatooine that Qui-Gon goes to find young Anakin, and that's where the pod racing happens. And then Luke's then grows up on the farm in Tatooine.
Gotcha. Or we're dead wrong, and someone's just
probably
send us death threats or whatever. Alrighty, Callum. So the next article here is ex-PlayStation boss wants to see 15-hour AAA titles return. This is from Push Square. Sammy Barker writes the article. Former PlayStation executive Sean Layden, who departed the company last year, believes that the AAA model of crafting 30-plus hour games with $1 million budgets is simply not sustainable, particularly as production costs continue to snowball. Speaking as part of Game Lab Live, the likable lead pointed to the fact costs have generally doubled each generation. It's hard for every adventure game to shoot for a 50 to 60 hour gameplay milestone, because that's going to be so much more expensive to achieve, he explained. And in the end, you may close some interesting creators and their stories out of the market, if that's the kind of threshold that you have to meet, we have to reevaluate that. Layden continued that despite ballooning budgets, the cost of buying games has not increased. It's been about $60 US since I started in this business, but the cost of games have gone up 10 times. If you don't have elasticity on the price point, but you have huge volatility on the cost line, the model becomes more difficult. I think this generation is going to see those two imperatives collide. According to the executive, one solution may be to simply make smaller titles. Instead of spending 5 years making an 80-hour game, what does 3 years and 15-hour game look like? What would be the cost around that? Is that a full-throated experience? Personally, as an older gamer, I would welcome a return to the 12 to 15-hour AAA game. Callum, how do you feel about those words? I kind of agree with that, with these games touting, especially going to next gen, like this is our biggest world ever, this is the most expansive thing. It's like, I don't want that. I want something that is just more dialed in.
Yeah, I think he's spot on. I think we even talked about how the cost of games should probably go up with next gen. To, I think we were saying like $70-$80, but I think this is a perfectly viable alternative. I mean, but we also always say how we're not, or definitely I'm not really into longer experiences or whatever. I mean, Last of Us 2 took me about 20 hours to beat, and it. And without going into too much detail, that's an extremely detailed game, which we'll get into later. But we also know that it came at the cost of a lot of crunch and a lot of hard work from its employees. So I think that this is a great alternative, because not only will it mean that the production costs will go down, maybe meaning that we won't have to spend more money. But also they're more manageable. I prefer these games because I can experience more of them. I don't have to worry about my backlog and all these different things. And also it should hopefully lessen crunch, because there's less areas that have to be fleshed out and less things that have to be have people crunch on to sort of get perfect. I mean, I know Naughty Dog are an exception to the rule even with AAA games, because they go into like a ridiculous amount of detail in comparison to other studios. Probably Rockstar with Red Dead 2 are probably the only studio comparable, but both of those come at the cost of extraordinary crunch, and I think this helps sort of a sort of talk about a solution to that as well. And I think something that's not really talked about a lot is with the Unreal 5 engine as well, with the new technology and everything, about how 3D artists aren't going to have to worry about getting their models low poly and making them run well in the game, because I mean, I'm not intelligent enough to understand how, but it seems that Unreal Engine 5 will allow 3D artists to import their model no matter the poly count, and they'll still run fine in that world. So that could also help reduce the amount of crunch that goes into these 3D artists' jobs and these animators' jobs as well. So yeah, I think it's a great starting point, a great talking point to go into. It's definitely something that has to be addressed, and I think in terms of the price of games and the sustainability of AAA, and I think it's a great. Sean Layden's a great person to start that conversation and get the ball rolling.
Yeah, no, I agree. I wonder if a lot of these studios, they focus on these long experiences because they're trying to justify the $60 price tag. And I think what Sean Layden is saying is that just because if we were supposed to follow this like a half as long model, they're not going to reduce the price to be half as much. It's going to be the same like full tier price. It's just a shorter experience. And maybe that's what these companies are worried about, is offering something that's somewhat shorter but still demanding the same retail price. I don't think I mind that. They could maybe work on just more replayability within the world itself. Even like say like Horizon Dawn, that's a Horizon Zero Dawn, that was a massive game, super long, and I feel like you could have cut that in half, maybe add some other components, challenges to make it more replayable. I mean, it is pretty replayable, and then you could still charge $60. So you might have to do more, provide more other mechanics or other ways to replay it, but you can, it could be done where you cut that world, basically the scope, in half, or I guess focus on DLC that adds more options to it. But yeah, I just wonder that they're worrying about providing something that consumers will want to pay the full retail price for.
I just think length of a game should not be in the conversation at all when discussing like quality. I think obviously like with Resident Evil 3, I mean that was what, like 4 hours long or something.
Right.
And obviously that definitely has an argument about being too short, but that's I suppose a different example because that does have replayability. But yeah, I mean, if there's like a 4 or 5 hour game, like a Call of Duty campaign with nothing else, then yeah, that's probably not quite enough to even if it's a really great 4 or 5 hours, it's still not quite enough. But yeah, I think 10 at least 10 hours. I mean, that's about the length of the first Last of Us game. That was perfect. It's a great length. Like I said, it's more manageable. It means we can experience more titles. And I think for AAA games that are more narrative based, I think that's a perfect length. I don't think we need 50 to 60 hour games. Even open world RPGs, I prefer that they're more that they're shorter in terms of like from getting from A to B in the story, and then you have like these extra things that you can go off and do if you want to. So yeah, I agree with everything he says. I think it's yeah, I just don't think length should have such a high place at the table when talking about the quality or the viability of a game.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think it's hard for a lot of people to. It seems like that's the case where it's hard for them to separate that by judging the quality and how did I actually enjoy the experience versus how long was it, how much content was there, that kind of thing. So I think they're also fighting just the general consumer that I don't know. I've never met the general consumer, but it seems like they're an idiot and they just really go for like these taglines on boxes like, oh, it's 80 hours plus or biggest world ever. And they're the ones that movie companies make the trailers for that show you the entire movie. It's like there's idiots out there and it seems like they're the majority. And so they kind of run the show. So maybe they're because they guide the demand, they're trying to make sure that they're happy. But I don't know. We're getting smarter and I think a lot of us can, especially as we get older, we can appreciate these smaller experiences more.
Yeah, and it's like so the Steam summer sale started today, and I bought Assassin's Creed Origins and Odyssey for sort of because I want to get ready for Valhalla because I think it's like a new story or whatever. And I was looking at the reviews for Origins, and like loads of reviews are saying about how a lot of the side quests are like extremely repetitive, like they're exactly the same but just in different areas of the map. And so those side quests, like once you've played it once or twice, there's no further enjoyment to get out of that except from fleshing out the game, making it longer, making you spend more time with it. So this is what, like, if they took those out or just had one variation or maybe even two variations of each kind of quest, yes, the game will be cut short, much shorter, but you'll finish that experience and be like, wow, I really enjoyed my time with that. I didn't once feel like negative in like I felt it was repetitive or anything. Like having this filler serves no purpose except making the game longer. Like why do you want a game that's longer just because it's longer? Like that's what I mean. Like people aren't saying, oh, I want a 60-hour game because then I'm getting a 60-hour experience which is all positive. You're getting about 20 hours of genuinely new and fresh and exciting gameplay, and then 40 hours of filler where you may be grinding or you're doing repetitive side missions or you're just doing something that the game wants you to do to drag it out, which I get that, I certainly like grinding in games, but I wouldn't be upset if that wasn't in the game as well, if that makes sense. So yeah, I think people just look at the numbers, they look at the complete length and just say that's good, and then they don't think that, oh, well, actually, I spent so many hours doing repetitive things that didn't actually really need to be repeated like they were. So, yeah, like I said, I think it's a conversation that needs to be had. And I think someone like Sean Layden starting it is a great way to get people thinking differently about it.
Yeah, it's always an interesting conversation because we're dealing with art and how do you price art? And also what happens when the art is influenced by the price or by the consumer, and they really need to be separate. Like I want these studios, and it's only something that's achieved by these like really top tier studios that they can do whatever they want. It doesn't matter about the consumer really because there's so much trust and they nail it every time. Say like a Rockstar, like a Naughty Dog. they can afford Valve. They can afford to do whatever they want, and everyone just has to deal with it. But you have these studios where I wish they didn't have to listen so much to what people want and just do whatever they want. So they're not adding stuff. They're not adding padding into a game to reach a certain length because consumers want it. They're doing exactly what they want to do, the right amount of length that they want to do. But it's always tough because this is art, and these developers are having to create it to hit these like bullet points for consumers. But it's almost pulling them out of what they honestly want to do.
Yeah, and the production costs and sort of the amount of money that obviously shareholders like need for their investments or whatever, that is what causes the crunch as well that people should be against. And this is a way to try and not obviously this won't if they would start charging more money for games, or if there was a new way of like looking at creating AAA games, I wouldn't eliminate crunch, but it's definitely a starting point into thinking how the industry can do things differently, especially when it comes to the labor that goes into making these games. So that's what I mean. I think the trade-off of people having to crunch and make these longer experiences isn't, and I'll get into this later with Last of Us 2, because I think that has a lot of things that are so detailed that just aren't necessary. I think that people are looking at the length of games going, oh yeah, I want the longest possible game that I can get, but that's what's causing these people to be overworked and make these super long experiences which are not being compensated enough with the base price of games.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's an interesting concept, and it's something that's been around for so long. We'll see if next gen, if they decide to change that model at all. I guess we could say that the current gen did try and change that up with the whole loot boxes and just like other cosmetic stuff, like really with Fortnite, games like that. They added so much cosmetic ability, letting you buy stuff there to kind of offset those costs. And so maybe as we go into next gen, there's another format that they can add where it doesn't take away from the gameplay, or it's not predatory, but it gives a way for these companies to make some more money, but still keep the price model the same for the base level of the game. I don't know, but I wonder if we'll see a new series of different like exploration with the pricing.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of games don't apply to this sort of the budgets and the cost of buying and things, because I mean, again, using Assassin's Creed as an example, I imagine with the amount of microtransactions that game has, the amount of different additions that game has, the amount of additional content there is, and I don't mean like expansions, I mean just like in-game currency things, like buying multipliers and buying weapons and all these things. I think those games probably make a ridiculous amount of money. So I think Sean Layden's probably talking about these games like God of War, which had absolutely no additional content, no microtransactions. The only money it made was selling the game. But obviously that is a AAA game that will have had a huge amount of money put into it. And I think it's the same with Uncharted. I think Uncharted maybe had a few multiplayer things, but that community is not quite as big. So I think there are some AAA games that this doesn't apply to. I think there are some AAA games that make plenty of money due to the way they try and tackle this sort of problem. But the reason that they have these microtransactions is because this is an issue. So it's still definitely a thing to sort of think about.
I wonder if the key to this is just more sponsorships with corporations. Like we get God of War, in the next God of War, he's eating a slice of Pizza Hut pizza. He's got his Pepsi, and that's how they offset the cost. He's dunking on someone with his Air Jordans. Like if you can incorporate that more, that we get it all paid for, we're all good.
Yeah. And I mean, I'd love to like sit here and say like just get rid of shareholders, because obviously they're the ones that want all the money in the world, but they're also the ones that invest their money into these budgets. So it'd be nice if games were more self-sustaining, so they didn't have to have all these like greedy shareholders. But that's just life, I suppose.
You know what? That brings up, I got to talk to these, they're not devs, they're starting their own platform. It's called Vox Pop Games. So they're kind of taking that model and running with it, where traditionally you have it with AAA, at least, like you have your shareholders and they put so much money into the game. They also want their investment back, which kind of influences how the game flows, the direction. But with Vox Pop, they're starting with indies. But the idea is that as a player, you can invest into a dev and give them money and basically pay for and fund. It's like a venture capital thing where you're funding the project directly to the developer. I wonder if you can then, like if years pass, if that can grow into like a AAA space where Naughty Dog, they like branch off, or some big kind of developer like that branches off and says, hey, you pay us for our next game directly, and then we're off to the races. Like we don't have to worry about these other entities coming in. It's just, if you're a fan, you'd have to have a lot of fans to actually pay for it. But there's other markets that are trying to create options.
Yeah, well, it's like Kickstarter, isn't it? It's, I think was it Larian Studios who made Divinity Original Sin? I think that was a Kickstarted game. And I mean, that is a hugely popular franchise now that's gone on and been published under different branches and things. But yeah, that was originally Kickstarted, and Larian, I think I might have got this wrong, or it might have been Pillars of Eternity. I'm not sure, but I know that they had lots of fans from their older games. And so doing a Kickstarter was a really good idea because all these fans could come in and give them money, and it meant that they didn't have to worry about these things like investors and deadlines. And
right.
Because that's the thing, having these investors is what creates deadlines. Fans, I think the games industry, when games are delayed, I think generally, like, I never really see people actually annoyed that a game's been delayed. I think people are pretty accepting of games being delayed because they're happy to wait for them. They're happy to wait for the best version of the product. But the problem is that deadlines, when you're talking about games with shareholders, means crunch, and it means having to meet these deadlines so that your shareholders are pleased and they're getting a return on their investment. But if something's kickstarted, it's funded by fans, and fans are just so understanding of these kinds of things. So I think there's definitely a way for things to be shaken up there as well. So it's quite cool that Vox Pop are sort of realizing that problem and trying to sort of get some things going on there as well.
And I want to say they were offering a model where you would actually get a return on your investment. Like you could actually get a percentage back. So there was a way to make money off these devs if their titles are successful. So it's not just like with Kickstarter, you just put your money in and that's it. You can actually grow with the dev. They're exploring that. They're like super early on in that, and they're just dealing with indies. But I mean, we could flash forward 10 years. I wonder if other companies would come out and let you grow with the dev, like actually invest your money more on a consumer level. We don't see that a lot. I know that was a lot of issues with Kickstarter at the beginning, is that you give them your money and they can do whatever they want with it, and you funded this project, but you get no return off that. You get the model of the game, you get the a t-shirt, whatever, but you don't get to experience the growth that they do. And I wonder if there's more attention or like excitement for people to actually go that route versus just giving them money.
Yeah, that's interesting. Actually, that is it. There'd have to be like a huge amount of transparency, I suppose, with the finances and things. But yeah, that's definitely an interesting solution, and I'm just glad that people are exploring those avenues, because I think, I mean, not to get political, but there's definitely now that we've got to where we are under like capitalism and everything. I think there's now definitely a way that we can steer it, off slightly and try and regain some ethical sort of solutions to a lot of the problems that there are, like especially in the games industry, which has some really awful crunch issues. So it's good to hear that there are some people fighting that fight. Yep,
I agree. Alrighty, Callum. Well, we got our last article here. This one's a pretty fun one. So this is Crash Bandicoot 4 was officially announced. So I don't know if you saw online on Twitter anyways. I was seeing like by Friday last week, it was starting to unravel. Like a lot of stuff was getting leaked and shown up, and then by Monday they finally made their announcement. And it was also, so it was showing off, which I don't have here, but Jeff Keighley did some kind of like I think it's been his Summer Game Fest thing, and I want to say it was revealed there as part of that. But there was also Alf was involved. You remember Alf from the TV show where he's like a puppet? He was there announcing something. I didn't watch that part, but I just saw it screenshots, and I'm like, what alternate dimension did I land in? But the actual article here is from IGN.com. Jonathan Dornbush has the article, Crash Bandicoot 4, It's About Time. First gameplay and details revealed. Activision has announced Crash Bandicoot 4, It's About Time, a brand new canonical sequel to Crash Bandicoot 3 Warped. Spyro Reignited trilogy developer Toys for Bob is behind the brand new adventure, which is set to be released on October 2nd, 2020 for PS4, Xbox for $60 US. It's About Time. It's built from the ground up as a new experience in the spirit of the original 3 Crash games developed by Naughty Dog for the original PlayStation. Players can either play as Crash or Coco Bandicoot for the full adventure, with other playable characters thrown into the mix like Neo Cortex, featuring a brand new art style, making a departure from what Vicarious Visions created for the Crash Bandicoot Insane trilogy. It's About Time will feature new platforming moves, new masks, new special abilities, 2 major control schemes, and plenty more. What'd you think about this? I'm overall pretty positive about the trailer they showed off.
Yeah, it's really cool. I think it looks great. I think it's very brave to try and to sort of change the appearance of Crash and like the other characters, but I think people were really positive about that, so they've done a really good job there. So kudos to the sort of art team. It's really cool. I think Toys for Bob's a really good choice to take it on as well. I think they ported the Insane trilogy to Switch, so they've got some sort of dealings with it, and obviously they did the Spyro trilogy, and they also did Skyland as well, which I don't know. My little brother loved Skylanders when that was like a thing, with all the little action figures. And I used to play it with him sometimes, and I mean, luckily I never got into it because I know that the figures are like a super costly thing, right. But he had like a box full of them, as little kids do, get spoiled rotten. But yeah, whenever I'd watch him play, they seem like pretty cool little games. They've definitely got like a really nice style, and yeah, I'm excited to see it. I think I'll definitely have to go back to the Insane trilogy now, because I only did the first one when that came out, and the third Warped is definitely my favorite one. So I'm looking forward to sort of having a reason to go back to it. When was the release date? Because I know they announced it.
I want to say October. It was just in the thing here.
Oh yeah, October the 2nd. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, October 2nd. Cool. Yes, that's soon. It's just a couple months from now.
Yeah. But yeah, it's exciting. I think it looks cool. But yeah, like I said, I just need to get back into that sort of series, because it's not really a series I've been that into since I was sort of a little kid, but I know that I'll like it as soon as I sort of get back involved.
Yeah, and I didn't mind there was some issues online, or just some interpretations of the change in the art style, like it's more cartoony and I guess more cel shaded. I didn't mind that. I thought it looks dope. It looks very close to original Crash, but some people didn't like that. I thought it was fine.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think what you got to remember though is this is a sequel, so this is like a brand new edition. The Insane trilogy is a remake of the old games, so right. They need to put their own stamp on it. They need to separate it from the original trilogy, and I think they've done a really good job. I think they've done it really respectfully, but also in a way that shows that that whilst that trilogy did come out with new graphics, it was based on old games. This is a new game, new mechanics, new everything, and yeah, I think it's really exciting. And I think when we finally get to play it, I think we'll see how archaic the gameplay is even in the remade trilogy. So I think it will be a really interesting contrast, and I think having a different art style will just help aid that as well.
Gotcha. Yeah, I agree. I'm pretty stoked for it. Callum, so that's all we got for this week. Beyond talking about The Last of Us, we can end it here, and then we'll cut this off. We'll do our own little special spoiler cast separate episode. So we'll do our normal spiel, ending it. Where can they find you online?
Sure. So Twitter at Bear Munro is where I'm most active. So yeah, follow me if you like.
Awesome. And you can keep up with the show on Twitter as well, Plastic Heart Pod. That's it for us this week. We'll see you guys next week. Bye bye.
See you later.
You're too late. I've already summoned Meteor.
Okay, let's go.